going to start, and now. Okay, so we're recording now. I'm sure we have a couple more people that'll be signing on, or hopefully signing on here. Andrew just texted me because I'm wearing a Cold Canoe Bay shirt. All my Rotary shirts are in the laundry and it's cold in my house. But thank you to everybody who signed on tonight. I know that there are a million things that you could be doing, and this is probably your not your first virtual scouting meeting of the week, or maybe of the day for some of you. So we wanted to pull all of our day camp directors. Hopefully those of you who got the email invite were able to forward it and invite any program directors or key staff members that you have. And we've also invited your local district professionals to join. Lots of people have questions about COVID in camp, and you have probably heard some of the things that have come out for our resident or overnight camps. So we wanted to make sure that we invited everybody associated with day camp on the Great Lakes fields, or the Great Lakes Division side, as well as the President Ford side, so that everybody got one message. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from somebody. There we go. Muting some folks. So if you do have questions, I'm going to go through some things first, and then we'll open it up for questions. Of course, the chat is always available. I have joining me, I have Diana Marsh, who's like our chaos coordinator of outdoor adventures. So she oversees Camp Tatanka and a million other council responsibilities, including Order of the Arrow. And she's our national camp school guru. She's helps host and teach national camp schools, and works to make sure that we're all following all the rules. So she's here to help me. And then I also have Andrew Wright, who is the camp director for Camp Rotary. He has, even though he's resident camp, overnight camp, and not necessarily day camp, but he's helped our council come up with and publicize all of our COVID policies for resident camps, and some of those apply to day camp, not all of them. So our resident camps are held on Scout property and are held to some different rules through state licensing. Not all of them apply to day camp, but we just wanted to clarify what those important things are today. So they're going to be jumping in, and if they see questions in the chat that I'm not paying attention to because I'm busy trying to get my cat out of the way of my computer, they can jump in and help. All right. Yep.
I know you said that this is being recorded and sent out in case people miss it, but will the slide deck also be emailed out just as like a reference point for us as well?
Yep, I can absolutely do that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's get started. Just as a recap, most of you know this, but just in case, wanted to show you our day camp structure. So over on the, oh, I have people's faces in my way. Over on the left side of the screen in the blue, we have kind of the day camp chart. So up here at the top, each of you have a staff advisor, and we'll talk about in just a few seconds who that is. And that staff advisor works with the day camp committee. So we have on the western side of the state, on President Ford, we have a day camp committee, and then on the eastern side, we have a day camp committee as well. And those committees are made up of camp directors, which many of you are camp directors. And the camp director in day camp is responsible for the overall administration of their specific camp, and also a health officer, health and safety guidelines. Under that camp director would be the program director. So that's the one that deals with all the fun, crazy stuff. So the actual crafts, nature, shooting supports, possibly aquatics if you have it, scout skills, those types of things. So just like many of you are probably familiar with a Cub Scout pack structure, so your day camp director is more like your committee chair. And then the program director would be more like the Cub master, who's supporting all of the den leaders. So if that structure helps you make sense of it. And then over here, this is kind of a Michigan Crossroads Council special structure. We have the camping director, and this year for day camp, that's me. My role in Michigan Crossroads Council is I'm one of our 3 camping directors, and I'm working with your staff advisors on things like bulk ordering, so that we don't have to put in 150 different orders for t-shirts when we're all getting the same t-shirt. I helped Diana staff our national camp school that we recently had. I'm also working with our council assessment chair to make sure that you have an assessment team that comes out and visits each of your camps, and that everybody is aware and understand and following our national camp accreditation guidelines. So that is the structure of how things go. Now, to show you, if you aren't sure which division you fall in, because we are one council, but we have 2 divisions. So the west side, the President Ford division, would be all of these counties here. Lots of territory to cover. And then the east side, the Great Lakes division, is over here. Not as many counties, but just as many people. And here are your staff advisors. So if you are on the west side of the mitten, you have Jake Straub. His contact information's here. Hopefully you've already been in touch with him at some point or joined his committee meetings. And then on the Great Lakes division side, you have James McClellan. And here is his contact information if you haven't been in touch with him before. I will be sending these slides out like somebody asked earlier, but if it's something you want to make sure you don't miss right away, a lot of times on webinars and meetings, I'll just take my cell phone and take a picture of the slide. So if that helps and you don't have their contact information, you can go ahead and grab that now.
Hey, Corey, I just recently this week found out I'm actually taking over for James.
Okay, good to know. We'll get that changed.
I'll put my contact info in the chat for everybody.
Sure, that would be awesome.
I'm not losing you after all, Keegan.
Well, I have a huge to-do list for you, Keegan. All right, so before we dive into COVID, just to let you know, the registration links for day camps are live. There is one link for all of our day camps. If you're associated with a Scout Reach day camp, I think most of those are going to go on their own link. If you have edits to what's in there, you can let your staff advisors know, and we'll work together to get them fixed, starting with Keegan. If in the main page of this registration, we have little paragraphs about each camp across the council. And that's important because not all of them offer the same things. We know that most of you do, but for example, St. John's has fishing. Well, it's kind of hard to put on fishing if you don't have a lake in your day camp. So the purpose of those little sections there are so that families can check out what it is that you want them to know. And then on the right, they can actually register. We have kind of a different, a lot of our camps have different number of days, some pricing changes, so that part's important. There are a couple of camps that are listed on the main page, but you won't see a registration link yet. And that would be because maybe they haven't secured their location or something like that, but they will be up as soon as they have all the information. So again, if you check out that link tonight and you say, hey, wait a minute, there's something for my camp that should be there, or something's misspelled, just let your staff advisor know and they can help us get it updated. Another thing about those registrations is we need all staff, and that's volunteer staff who are running the camps or the professional partner who's helping them. We need you to register online for your camp. There's a staff registration. Of course, it's free. And it's important for 2 reasons. One, it helps us with supplies and orderings, but if gathering restrictions change between now and your camp, we're able to look at that registration at any point and say, okay, here's how many people we're going to have on the property currently. So if there is a cap at some point where we have to change, we can easily do that and not leave out that staff number. So that's pretty important. Not quite something we've had to worry about in the past. And then we also have, if you are a volunteer and you are volunteering to be a staff member for one of our day camps and you're working the whole time, whether it's 3 days or a 2-day camp, and you have little ones in Cub Scouts, you can actually register your Cub Scout for a 50% discount. And to do that, you have to have a special code, a coupon code, and it's one person, one code. So if you have 2 youth, you're going to have to get 2 codes. But to get those special codes, you have to contact your staff advisor. So we'll be getting that information out to you very soon. So again, if you fall into one of those categories, go ahead and let your staff advisor know. That's a good question. Renee asked in the chat, is there a password for staff? I'm going to have Andrew help me remember if we did that. I think it was something very, very simple.
I think so, but if you want to keep going, I will go into Black Pug and look, and then I can jump back on.
That would be awesome. I think I sent it to the staff advisors, but I would have to go back and double check. But good question. We'll come back to that one. Okay, so that's just registration. Again, if you have updates, your staff advisors are the people to go to. Now we're going to talk about COVID for a chunk of time, and then we'll open it up for questions, and then I'll jump back to general day camp supplies to give you some more information on that. So going back to COVID, so some of the general practices that we need every day camp to follow, and we've put many of these on the registration site so families know. But masks or face coverings are to be worn at all times for staff and campers. This is really, really important. Sometimes people say, well, we're outside, so I can take my mask off. That'd be fine if it was your family at a park or something, but this isn't. This is a scouting event, and this is our Michigan Crossroads Council policy currently. If it changed before summer camp, great, but right now we are operating as if this is the final word on that. So masks and face coverings worn at all times. We will make sure on the day camp trailers that there's a supply of extra disposable masks out there. The other thing that each camp has—
Corey, I assume masks will be in both adult size and child size then?
Yeah.
I could not put an adult size mask on a first grader unless they're a large first grader.
Okay.
Corey, I can touch on that. I'll make sure that we have both youth and adult masks because I have not finished your order yet. And then I do have that password for your staff.
Okay.
And that password is all lowercase, no spaces, weird science. And I'll type that in the chat too.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
And to clarify on those masks, this isn't a mask per camper. We're trying to work out if maybe we can find some funding for that. But this is backup masks. So if somebody breaks theirs during the day, but we do have on the registration that everyone's expected to bring those. Something else that's a little bit different is normally most of our camps, we'd supply you a big 5-gallon jug to refill water bottles and things. This year, because of COVID, we are not allowed to offer communal water sources. So we wouldn't have a jug out for anybody to just come up and fill up a water bottle. What we will do, though, we're still going to supply you that 5-gallon jug. And what we put in registration is that families need to pack water. If they know they're going to need a lot, pack extra. We're going to supply that jug for you, but if somebody needs to refill, you have to have a staff person, and it's the same staff person refilling, which could get crazy if you have a day camp of 100 youth who are all expecting to be able to constantly refill their water bottles. So that's something that you'll need to plan for. We have it, again, on the registration site, asking families to bring their own water this year. And that's something that you could put out in your pre-camp emails as a reminder. We're going to have that jug for you for backup because we know Youth get dehydrated, especially since they've been used to being indoors all year. So we'll have that emergency jug there for you to fill. But if you have to use it, you just have to make sure that you have a staff member assigned to being the one who fills it. And that's to reduce the number of people who touch it. And then, of course, social distancing is supposed to be enforced at all times. I think that we are all pretty used to what that means. I'm going to refer to the word cohorts as we talk about groups. In day camps, a lot of times you'll assign them as dens. So think about it. If that's something you do at your day camp where you say, you know, den number or whatever, when I say cohort, replace the word den, but everybody calls it a little something different. At resident camp, which is overnight camp, we're calling them pods rather than patrols, because that tends to confuse scouts thinking that their home patrol is the same thing. So, but for purposes of this training tonight, I'm going to call it cohorts, but you can insert in your brain whatever it is that you're calling your groups who travel around together. So those cohorts have to have no more than 10 people. That's youth and adults. So when you get your registration reports, that's something that you can filter and figure out how to assign those 10 people in those cohorts with adults included. Now, this is the tricky part. So even though you can only have 10 people in a cohort, that doesn't mean 2 cohorts can't be at crafts at the same time. They can. We just need to follow social distancing. So the idea is to get to get a group of people going around together, because it lowers the chances of mixing people from different areas, which is important. But it is kind of goofy that we can have multiple cohorts there. But that's also the way it works at resident camp. The other thing to keep in mind with cohorts is we need you to limit the mixing as much as you can. So if you have a day camp that generally has all tigers in one den and all wolves, we can't do that this year. So when if a pack signs up 5 youth, we'd like those 5 youth to be together in a cohort, because they're very likely coming from the same side of town. They're probably already meeting face to face with each other. They're used to being a group. You can mix packs to build a cohort, that's fine, but they need to stay together all week. So it limits the number of mixing we have if you keep those groups together. Does it matter if we have 15 or 20?
That, would that mean that, like at lunch, if you have a couple people from pack 2, 4, 5 who are during the day mixed with 4, 5, 6, and they want to go eat lunch with their 2, 4, 5 people, are we trying to limit the rest of their 2, 4, 5 people because we had too many? Would we limit that, or ask them to try to limit that?
Yeah, we need to limit that. They need to stay with their cohort at all times when they're at camp. And then cleaning and sanitizing program areas in between groups. So when you have everybody leave the BB gun range, all of those guns have to be cleaned and sanitized before the next group can pick them up. And we're going to go into a little bit what that means. And then we've had lots of questions on, hey, can we still do opening, closing flag ceremony? We have a couple day camps that do a campfire program, even though it's not evening time. Those are all fine, as long as you're following social distancing. So as you line up for flag, you have your cohorts separated, or if you're sitting down for a campfire ceremony, you're socially distancing the seated cohorts. But you can still figure out those ceremonies as long as you have the space to do those. Shooting sports recommendation. This isn't mandatory because we know all of your properties are completely different, but this is a strong recommendation because it's easier to sanitize this way. There's 2 kind of ways that you usually do BB guns, and one would be laying on, usually we'd have tarps or something like that out, which is really easy to throw down and put together. And then the other way is seated. And what we found is it is far easier to wipe down a table and to clean your guns when they're laying on a table than it is to try to sanitize a mat that kids have been laying on. So we definitely recommend that you do the seated position rather than the prone if you're able to. The issue comes down to having enough tables. And again, that is different at every single location. Some of your locations have gobs and gobs of picnic tables where you could do it really easily, like the picture on the right. Some of yours don't. We wish we had 1 million folding tables in the world to put on all the trailers to help you out. We just don't own enough, especially with while our resident camps are in session all summer. We don't own enough of those to just distribute. And it doesn't help some camps to even have them on the trailer. A lot of times they're just in the way. So some things to think about: if your camping location has lots of picnic tables, you are all set. But if you think folding tables are a good option, and this photo is taken from this fall, we did a very COVID-friendly shooting sports event out at the Auburn office. I think Ojibwe District, Shoreline, Heartland, all of them participated in it. They used the folding tables, which were super easy to wipe down and sanitize. And it was really simple to social distance. They could just set chairs where they needed the Cub Scouts to sit and mark them. They were really long so that they knew they could only fit 2 at a table. And that was an awesome way to do it. Again, we don't have 1 million of those tables to pass out to every day camp. However, if you think that's something that you need, a couple ideas is as you gather your staff, you can say, hey, does anybody a lot of people have these in their basement for home parties. You can talk with your district executives to see if they know. A lot of times we have local chartered organizations where we might hold roundtable or something like that will loan us these types of things for something like this. Oh, Kevin McLeod is letting us know that for this event, these were 8 feet long. These tables were 8 foot, so there was a lot of space. But start thinking about that if it's something that you need for your day camp. Just because we don't have it to offer doesn't mean we can't help try to figure out how to borrow it. There's a lot of organizations out there. Personally, I know sometimes when I'm shorthanded and need something like that, there's a local VFW that I ask. But don't forget to ask your staff for your day camp. A lot of times people do have things like this at home, and if they're coming to help you out at camp anyway, it just makes it easier.
Corey, why can't we just get like the spray and go sanitizer stuff that doesn't have to be wiped down? It's just, spraying it sanitized.
We're going to talk about that in just a second. The issue with the spraying guns is it gets them wet, and you don't want the inside of those guns to get wet because the wear.
As far as the mats go, when it comes down to, because the mats are way easier at Spindler Park to just manage because of our setup and what we're used to. Being able to just have a can of Lysol to spray down those mats is just as good of a sanitizer.
Sure, we're just saying we're recommending tables because it's easier to wipe down a table than it is to get down and rub all over a mat. And with the table, they're not touching it much. And with a mat, they're touching it with their whole body. So if that's what you have and that's the option, we're going to talk about the sanitizer we're going to have available to you. You can do that. We're not saying no. We're just saying if you have ability to do the other one's better because it's less body contact on all of the program supplies.
And don't forget the goggles.
Yep, the eyewear as well. All of that's going to have to be wiped between uses. And we'll go through what we're going to supply in just a second. I wanted to note the required forms. We've have had several questions about these. Every year, the medical forms, parts A and B, have always been required. Remember, part C is only for our overnight camps, where our youth are there more than 72 hours, so they have to get a doctor's signature on a physical. That's not required for day camp. But it is required for everybody in camp, both youth and adults. And that link, that form is on the registration site. And oh, I see Andrew put in correction. Staff password is Weird Science 21. And we'll get an email out to you afterwards with the PowerPoint slide to make sure you have that. So the COVID waivers, I'm sure many of you are familiar with these. They're on our website. So there's one for youth, there's one for adults, and then there is a supplemental medical form for adults over the age of 60 or who might have specific health conditions. And for those, they actually do need a doctor's signature to say it's okay for them to participate. So on your first check-in day, you're going to be collecting a lot of forms there, the health form, the COVID waiver, and then we have another one that's not on the website yet. There were just some edits today before we could post it, so they'll be up later this week. But we actually have to have a parental commitment to transport form. And this is, of course, because of COVID. So it is having the parents say, if something happens at camp and you suspect that my child has symptoms of COVID, I'm going to drop what I'm doing and come pick them up. Because on that first slide we talked about, let me go back because I know it was on there, but now I don't remember saying it out loud. I think I jumped over it. A dedicated isolation area. So if there is a child or an adult who's at camp who has some symptoms and you're worried that they might have COVID, they have to go wait in an area, whether it's a table that you say this is our area or a canopy, whatever it is, so that you can see them. They're in view, but nobody's going near them. So if suddenly a child just spikes with a temperature, they have to sit there and you're going to contact their family to come get them. But they have signed a form saying, if I get a call from camp that says we think your child might have COVID, I'm going to come get them. I'm not going to say they're going to wait till the end of the day. I'm signing that I'll come get them.
Corey,
Yes?
I have a question with that, just because, just from experience with camps, a lot of times people come to camp and, oh, I didn't fill out my med form A and B. I didn't fill out my waiver or whatever. With these forms, I know with med forms A and B, a lot of times we can't have those emailed. Is there any way for, like, when you get a child coming maybe with Susie Cubmaster, is there a way for them to Dropbox these to us in advance so we can make sure we have that parental commitment form and COVID waiver in advance? Because those absolutely have to be signed by the parent. And if the parent doesn't come to camp.
So does the medical form. I mean, they all have to be signed.
Yeah, so that, like, if Johnny Scout comes with Susie Cubmaster and Susie Cubmaster is not his mom, I don't have forms. And I've had times where
then they shouldn't be staying in camp without their forms. They need to have the forms to stay.
Yeah, because the medical forms, parents sign those and hand those over to the troop at the start of the year. So
yeah, but this commitment to transport
right,
forms,
I agree.
I see a lot of parents forgetting that one.
This is one of those times where we say, you know, these forms are very important, that we need to have them. And so when we are talking to any of our campers or parents that are registered for our events, if you don't have this, you cannot come. Straightforward, because, you know, it's for the safety of our scouts, straight out. So as Corey said, that's exactly it. If you don't have it, you cannot come to camp, period.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. I'm wondering, is there a way we can have them email them to us? Is that a possibility with the commitment to transport? Not the medical forms.
Hey, Andrew, you're gonna have to step in because I don't remember exactly what's on that form.
So the issue with it is now you're telling parents, here's 2 different ways you can submit, and it's gonna get crazy hard for you to organize that, because you don't want them emailing their medical forms out. That's a lot of personal information.
No, not the medical forms.
But if you say, don't email the medical form, but this is okay, you're opening yourself up for a lot of confusion. Because they're going to say, well, you said I could email, or now all of a sudden you have somebody showing up where they emailed you 2 forms, but they don't have a medical form. I think it's easier to have it all one way, even though it sounds like it would be easier to have it electronically. because now you have it all in front of you and you're not trying to figure out how to print some forms in the middle of day camp to have on hand.
So from a risk management standpoint, when these were presented to the risk management committee, none of the COVID forms are going to be accepted with electronic signatures. We can look at if there's a way to do an upload, but I'll have to talk through that process with Corey and Diana to see if it's something that we can make happen.
I have a question when you get a second.
That wouldn't be something that we could manage all summer long either, because we're away at camp. We're not at our computers managing those things. So that would be incredibly difficult to figure out. We just have to be very, very communicative with the people who have signed up, and we'll have their email addresses when they register. But we'll get into temperature checks here in a minute too. That's another thing. If you don't have it, you get, or if you're not at the right rate, you get sent home.
Hey, Corey, I apologize if I missed this earlier, but the main question that kind of brought this up was, what if somebody who's not the parent is dropping the scout off? Did something change? Because I thought we weren't, units weren't supposed to be carpooling or driving scouts that aren't there with scouts to attend events.
I'm not sure I quite understood that question. You can carpool. It's just encouraged. It's encouraged to drive independently because, again, that cuts down on mixing of people.
Okay.
It's hard to socially distance in a car, but
yeah,
you can carpool.
Okay, maybe it relaxed since last year when it all came out, but I remember that was a pretty big topic of conversation.
Well, the issue is everybody in that car is getting a temperature check. If one person has a fever, the whole car goes home.
That's a good point to make very clear.
Hey, Corey. Oh. Sorry. Real quick question to clarify on the parental part. If does it have to be the parent? Like the example would be, you have an older sibling or something that like the parent works, but they say, "Oh, I will get someone there to get them," or does it have to be the parent?
To sign the form?
No, to say, like, if the parent signs, it doesn't necessarily have to be the parent, right? It could be another designated someone to come get them. I know it sounds nitpicky, but I could see someone saying, well, I'll send my sister to go get them.
Yeah,
Well, they're on the med form A and B as a release person. I would assume
that's what I meant.
Anyone that is listed on the medical form as allowed to pick up the scout can come and pick them up. What we're asking the parent for is their contact phone number in case we need to call them, and a secondary contact number in case we cannot get a hold of them. We don't care who comes and picks them up, so long as that person is listed on their medical form, and it says that right on the form.
Okay, because on the slide it said parental, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to clarify, if someone asked.
The parent is making the commitment that they'll transport their child. How they transport the child, we don't care, other than that person needs to be listed as someone authorized to take the scout off of the property on their health form.
Right,
okay,
and
thanks.
not the Uber driver, because I did have someone try to pull that one time. We're not putting a kid in the car with the Uber driver. It doesn't say on your form. Somebody asked, will there be pre-camp meetings, or is that on one day? Could they turn them in early? That's entirely up to you as a camp director. If you have access to your park or facility and want to do a pre-camp meeting and collect some forms early, you could absolutely set that up. Not everybody has the ability to do that. You just have to make plans for the folks who couldn't do that early. And as signups are ramping up, your staff advisors are going to be able to help you get contact information for everybody signing up. So you can do, a weekly email leading up to camp if you want to. You could do a virtual meeting and go over all this stuff for people who have questions. Carrie Chance is saying in the chat that their camp has done a pre-camp meeting for years and it works really well. Carrie, what percentage of your packs would you say show up at the pre-camp meeting?
Sorry, I'm in the car. I would say we get maybe 60%. Because a lot of times we'll have like the Cub Master will come bring the whole pile of forms, kind of a thing. They'll make sure that everything's done and ready. So we get a pretty good amount of forms in on that day.
And that's awesome. We're gonna have it looks like Pond Man's done that before as well. That's fantastic. Whatever.
Resident Camp has a great big spreadsheet where they have to check off that they have every single form for every single person and a phone number. Can we get something similar to that for just the stuff they need for day camp?
Yep. Why don't we just for a few minutes hold off on questions, because a lot of what you guys are asking are in future slides. So we'll do some questions here shortly, but we'll get through the slides first, just in case I'm going to go ahead and answer your questions. So the 3 forms every child needs: medical form, their COVID waiver, and then that parental commitment to transport. And we do have on the next slide, I'll talk about a unit checklist, which is what I think it was Renee was referencing that resident camp does. And then their cohort, that daily group, there's going to be another form here. Let me get it in the right spot. Make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. Is the PowerPoint up right now, or is the sheet?
We see required forms. Still on required forms.
Okay, how about now?
You're good. Health screening form.
Yep. So every day, your cohorts will have to go through this, and it's name, and you can get a stack of these forms on the first day and pre-write people's names in to make it easier the rest of the week. They're going to have.
Could you make it a little bit bigger, please?
Sure.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Can we get this electronically too, so we could type people's names in? It'd make it a lot easier.
We're working on doing writable PDFs for every form. We just don't have that quite yet. So as I was saying, you'll have each cohort every day has to go through this. So if you have 10 people assigned to cohort 1, every day they turn in a new sheet. And this is, most of you have probably been to something where you've had to answer these questions before.
And then we can.
And then the temperature recorded box has to be filled out, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So let me go back to our PowerPoint here. So that's the daily screening page, and forms not required. One is I get asked a lot with resident camp. We have to have everybody fill out a central registry clearance form, or sometimes they call them a DHS form. Those are not required for day camp. Our day camps are not licensed by the state. We're still doing national camp accreditation, but they're not on BSA property. They're not overnight. So those are not forms you have to worry about for day camp. But the unit check-in roster we're gonna have for you. There is one online. I'll click here. But now that we have this other transportation form, we have to add to this before it's actually helpful to you. But this is what somebody was asking about earlier, is you can actually go through and check off youth. I have my youth waiver, medical form, the supplemental permission form, that's as needed, but we're gonna add a box for that transportation form. That wasn't something that we planned on having to do. Again, this whole COVID thing, it changes constantly, and we have to keep changing very quickly. So that was a change this week, and we're going to get it updated and have the right forms posted for you really soon.
Corey, in regards to the forms, I assume we have, you get a lot of our youth volunteers, BSA, Scouts, BSA, OA volunteers. If they drive themselves to camp because they're of age, do I need the commitment to transport for a parent?
No, because if they get COVID, they just go home.
They just get out on they go, we just call home, say your kid's on their way home, they've been exposed, or they're exhibiting symptoms.
Right.
But if they're getting dropped off and a parent needs to pick them up, then I will need that form for my youth staff members.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep. All that transportation form is doing is helping us so we don't get stuck. If we suspect somebody has COVID, we don't get stuck and nobody's coming to get them. This makes them sit down and say, okay, I really need to pay attention these 3 days, just in case I have to leave work and go. So items recommended for check-in. First of all, we have to do temperature checks, right? We already saw that daily form. We recommend, and again, we're making these recommendations because we know all of your facilities are different. I don't know what every camp is doing for a parking lot or check-in. But if at all possible, we recommend you do temperature checks in the car. So if you have somebody going around and just going to the window and zapping people, that way, if somebody in that car has a temperature, the whole car can turn around and leave. Now that takes some coordination, right? Because that other form is asking, what is your temperature? It doesn't help if a staff member temperature checks everybody in the car and then you go to record it and all the cars came from different places. So that is something to think about. And maybe it's the staff member who temp checks them, puts it on a Post-it note and gives it to the driver. That's something that you can kind of work out with your staff, what's going to work best for you. But back in October, that picture I showed earlier of that shooting sports event, that's what they did. They luckily had no issues. Temperature checks are going to be, I imagine, a little tougher because it's summertime, right? It is not cold outside in the middle of July. So,
hey, Corey.
Really, yep.
Real quick, you're in a not presentation view. You're in the presenter view.
We can see 2 slides.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
Go up to display settings.
Here?
No.
Yeah, that should do it.
Yeah, hit duplicate.
I have. Oh. Now I have to find it. I hate swapping back and forth between PowerPoints and.
I just need to go to slideshow. Yeah,
There
you're
you go.
good.
That's good?
Yep. Nice.
Still looks exactly the same to me.
It looks good on our end.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay,
Right there.
so
Perfect.
another recommendation, again, don't have to follow it, but you could potentially set staggered check-in times for your cohorts. If you have a smaller day camp that only has 30 youth and you're only setting up 3 or 4 cohorts, you could ask them to check in 15-minute intervals to make things easier. We know that perfect world scenario will never happen. Not everybody will show up at the exact right time, but it's something that could help space things out so you don't have a lot of people waiting. You could have your cohorts gather after they've been temp checked in the car in a designated area. So if you had signs out, I know Grand Ledge Day Camp does something like that. So cohort 1 meets by the cohort 1 sign, and their main adult of that group checks everybody in for the day and turns that form in. That's something that has worked in previous years, COVID or not. You can have your, another thing you can do during check-in. So in the past, a lot of day camps have had like camp-wide games going on while adults are checking in and making phone calls because something was missing from a form. That's not going to work this year because you don't want the cohorts mixing. They can be together at one area, but they have to be socially distanced. So if you wanted to write up, here's some games that you could play in your area while you're waiting. That would help pass the time and make check-in run a little bit smoother. So some of the supplies that we're providing you to help with this stuff is every day camp trailer is going to have 3 of our infrared thermometers. If you feel like you need more, you have between now and camp to borrow them. A lot of people actually have them. I know I carry one in my car now because I go to so many events. If you have a camp of 100 people, it's going to take a while with 3. But if you're not very big, you might not even need all 3, but that's what the council is able to provide for you this year. So again, if you think you need more, you can start thinking about where you might be able to borrow those from. Again, we'll have a box of disposable masks. I made a note to check for child-sized ones in case anybody loses theirs, breaks theirs, whatever happens. We're also going to make sure that all the trailers have a gallon of bleach on them. And then we're going to have 24, basically a whole case of labeled bleach spray bottles. So you can refill them as needed, and they're going to be marked. So you have to put the bleach in first, and it'll show you what line to go to, and you fill the rest of it with water. And that's what you'll be using to sanitize tables and things like that with. So you could pre-mix them and have one for every station. You can have a couple of extras near the bathrooms, whatever works for you. And we're also going to have large bottles of hand sanitizer. They're actually refillable. Each of our camps have a large quantity of donated hand sanitizer, like, what are they, 55-gallon drums? So we're gonna fill those hand sanitizer bottles for you so that throughout the summer we can actually refill them and supply you with more. We already have that stuff. And then of course, wristbands for camper identification. So everybody on that first day gets a wristband. Hopefully they keep it through all the days of camp, but probably not. So there'll be plenty of wristbands. And that's so, especially if you're in a public park, you can look out at the field and know that everybody with this wristband on it belongs to you, youth and adults. Again, here's the clarification on those spray bottles. So the bleach mixture is going to be for things like tables, chairs, tools, if you need to do those mats in between groups. And we're also going to have paper towels for you. But for those BB guns, bows, arrows, things like that, we don't want those to be sprayed. That causes all kinds of problems for us, and we want to make sure that the day camp that follows you has materials that actually work. So we're going to have sanitizing wipes for those. That's something that Andrew has been working on ordering for us for all of our camps. And that's a lot more expensive than a spray thing of bleach. So we don't want you to use those for every picnic table in the park, but definitely for those the shooting sports equipment. And then we'll have latex-free gloves for you as well on the trailers to help you with cleaning.
I have a quick question on the arrows.
Sure.
Yeah, kids go all over the place with the arrows. Does that mean every time they go out to pick up an arrow, that arrow will have to be sanitized, or we'll just worry about it at the end? Because they forget which arrows they have.
It should be sanitized before the next youth touches it.
But I think what he's saying is Johnny's going to shoot it. It's going to go to the left, but Sally's going to end up picking Johnny's arrow up.
Yeah, I mean, they don't remember what they had, and they just grab an arrow.
Yeah, we usually just tell them, hey, okay, you shot 4 arrows, go pick up 4 arrows.
So I just give them a sanitizing thing and wipe it off for the heck of it.
Pick it up.
On the arrows, the best way for doing the arrows is have color based on your fletchings is different arrows for each group on the target. And if somebody's shooting orange, the next one's green, the next one's yellow. That's going to be the best way for doing this. And then they bring back their same arrows. Tell them only pick up their arrows, even if you have to assist.
So does that mean we're actually going to have enough arrows?
Yeah, I don't think we have that.
So I'm going to interrupt everybody right now. Clearly, we want to try to keep everything as clean as possible, right? So we would love to say, if we did have the arrows and they were color-coded, if we had enough where we could color-code them, yes, definitely, we would love to go that way because I agree. I don't know if, Renee, if you were saying that, that's a great idea, and I love it. Or maybe if you have like a, what do you call it, that colored electrical tape, you could just, put a little band around it, that would work too. Yes, we want to be able to clean everything. And yes, we want to try to make sure that the scouts pick up their own arrows. But if a scout goes and picks up another arrow, I mean, once again, we are trying as much as we possibly can to make sure that they touch what they touch, and then we clean it in between. If a scout picks up another arrow, it happens. It is going to happen. We can't, you know, micromanage. I don't know what the word is, thinking of every little thing, but we just, you know, so just think about that. You know, I'm not saying that you shouldn't think about these things. They're definitely things we should think about. It's just, you guys are getting really very ingrained on what happened if there's so many what ifs in there, and we can't go that far.
And Diana, to that point, too, you know, Corey just touched on, we're going to have a whole mess of hand sanitizer in these trailers. If it makes sense to have a bottle that lives at your archery station so that they can sanitize their hands after they pick up arrows, then we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it before, you could do it before and after, you know, at the same time. Yep.
Yeah, no, but that was a fantastic point. I didn't even
Common
consider.
sense prevailed.
Right. I didn't even quite think that far. I mean, I've thought about archery and COVID, obviously, but didn't quite think about who was picking up which arrows on the way back. But those are really good points, and that's why we wanted to have this meeting. So if you have that question, somebody else on the call absolutely has that question.
And they are saying that in the limited amount of time that, like, unless Johnny Scout licks his hands, touches the arrow, Sally Scout picks it up and sucks her thumb, the likelihood that just by touching it, if your hands are clean and you're not sneezing on it, you're not licking it, the likelihood that we're going to spread COVID by touching the arrows is a lot less than Johnny and Susie sneezing on each other or sharing a water bottle.
Right. Yeah, so tell them not to lick the arrows through their mask.
Because that's the conversation Bill wants to be having at the archery range, a safety talk this year.
All good points. So something else we've been asked is, hey, you know, at our camps, we shut down and different times of the day and clean all of our restrooms. What do we do at day camp when those aren't our camp property? So, you know, we have to default to what is it that the facility that you're in does. Normally it's on them, they clean the bathrooms. But one of the reasons why we're going to provide 24 spray bottles on every trailer is we're going to print some signs for you that you can use and just post in your bathroom with a spray bottle. And it's just going to help people feel safe, whether it's our responsibility to clean or not. Give them the option. You know, do your part to help keep camp safe after you've used the restroom. You can spray down doorknobs, and some people are going to use it, some people aren't. And again, it's not in every location's different. It's not always our responsibility to clean it, but a scout is clean, so we're just going to give that option out there. Oh, Kevin. So COVID questions. Who else has questions that we haven't covered? And I promise you, this is way easier than resident camp. Poor Andrew. Every day has more and more things to figure out on making camp safe.
So my question is there a bleach alternative? Because I can't use bleach. I'm airborne and contact allergic to it. So anything that touches, I won't be able to. And I'm helping out at least 3 different camps this year.
So the wipes are a quat-based sanitizer. So if you need to utilize a wipe at the station that you're using, we can make that happen.
Right, but like sanitizing the bathrooms with the bleach water, now I can't go into the bathroom.
So don't use the bleach at your camp.
So anybody
That's 3 camps.
You're going to want to talk to them to make sure that we know not to use the bleach.
There's like 3 or 4 different camps then, because I'm helping Laura at Spindler. I've got my camp for Ottawa. I'm helping Dave and Melissa with theirs.
So
is there a possibility to pick up some citric for her to use at those camps? It should be fairly cheap at like GFS or something.
Yeah, let me look at a quad alternative because we have a quad that we have to use at our aquatics areas this summer. So Corey, I'll look into that a little more and we can go from there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Because again, if it's an allergy you have, somebody else has it.
Oh, it's like,
so
I know like 10 other scouts coming that have it.
Yeah, and as somebody who, you know, cleans houses, bleach is a great generic, you know, oh, that's easy, it's cheap, but just so much can go wrong with using a bleach spray as a sanitizer when there's so many other better ones out there that won't destroy clothes and tables and everything else.
So
We're going to end up with discolored
so just keep in mind we are following the best practices that are in place in other councils and the guidance from the CDC, and that's where these came from. These are not things that we just decided off of a whim. There was lots of conversation and research and phone calls that went into this too.
And we should remember that if we're doing our best and something happens, that's okay, as long as we're following all the rules. As Diana said earlier about kids touching the arrows, so.
right, and that's why we're having these conversations now in April, that we have figured out who all our day camp directors are. So we can figure out these things right now. You know, in day camp school, we talked about a few weeks ago, what are all the hazards that could potentially happen? Well, that's a very important one. And it's not just, it's for youth and a particular staff member. So so we're gonna regroup and figure out what it is we can do about it. And what we put on the trailer will have directions written out and laminated on the tubs that they're in. So maybe we do need to have a bleach alternative. And it's that much more important, even though we're not serving food at our camps, to know what allergies people have and take those health forms seriously.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yep, absolutely. It's question time.
All right, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, which I'm sure that a lot of people are also thinking. At what point are we going to say, is this really worth it? We are going through more than these kids go through every day when they walk into a school. I know that my kids' school district, I just asked both of them. They're not getting temperature checks in the morning. So at what point are we going to say, you've got 200-300 kids in an area, they can't play together, even with a mask on, and we have to sit here and make sure that daily everything's done down to a T. Otherwise, what happens?
So like Andrew said, the things we have in place, it's nothing we're making up. This is what we have to do in order for us to run camp. And so for us, we're going to do what we can because we know that this is retention. This is everything for a lot of scouts and for a lot of packs, for them to be healthy and stable to continue going to camp is one of those things that they need. And for all those scouts who have been online all year, whose schools haven't been in session, this is going to be fantastic for them. So we're doing what we have to do to run camp. If you don't feel like it's worth it, then don't be a part of it. There certainly are people who are in that boat, and it's their choice. We've had troops decide they don't want to go to summer camp this year because they don't want to wear masks, and that's anyone's choice. So we're going to do what we can to operate camp as safely as we can and as many places as we can. But if people feel like it is just too much in order to attend, they don't have to attend.
I want to add to that, and Corey, that's exactly where we're looking at, you know. And I want to add to that too is that we have a license to run our camps just in general. I know the day camps are specific. We don't run a license for that, but we have licenses for camps, right? And then we work with our licensing group. So they expect all of our camping operations to be held at a certain standard too, right? So we want to make sure that we're holding ourselves to that standard. For those of you who have gone through short-term camp admin, it's kind of one of those things as well. We still have NCAP, right? We have all these standards that we need to hold ourselves up to. So as Corey said, you know, we want to make sure that we are running our camps at the level we should be running them at. And we cannot, and I hate saying it, but we can't compare it to schools. I mean, you can compare a school to another school and they could be totally different. Just depends on that school district and how they're running theirs as well.
My question that goes, oh, sorry.
I want to say something on this too, because I agree. It's a lot of extra work, but because we are going through a lot of this extra work, we might have better attendance than we would because people are going to feel safe and secure and know that their kids are in a good place. So as hard as it's going to be better for, you know, recruitment because we are going to be taking precautions that other people haven't been.
You know, that's a good point too. We're used to fielding phone calls right now of people who are just not happy with the precautions we have to take. And of course, we can't adjust those. But we did receive, Andrew shared with me an email he received the other day from a parent who is a healthcare worker. And they said, I just want to let you know, I know this is a tough time, but as a healthcare worker and as a mom and as a scout leader, I really appreciate that you guys are doing these things and getting the information out now. And like I said earlier, it does change often. we do get surprises, and we just have to be flexible and make them happen. I mean, who knows what things are going to be like in June or July or even in August when some of your camps happen. So we're just doing the best we can to make it happen for those people who really do need it.
And you know, I don't want to do any of this. I'm sure none of you guys want to do it either, right? It's not like we're doing this because we want to and it's so much fun.
That's true. Melissa asked a fantastic question in the chat. Is there going to be a cutoff from the council regarding registration numbers? I could see people holding off until last minute because of COVID. So right now, all of the registrations are set to close a week before the start of your camp. So that gives you, as a camp director, the opportunity to look at your roster and make finalizations to your cohorts, things like that. If you have a specific number cutoff that you have to have because of the site you're in, let your staff advisor know right away. But right now we're paying attention to all of the things that change constantly in the state of Michigan. So that's another,
that, like, if a camp only has at that week out, if a camp only has 20 or 30 kids, is the council going to turn around and say it's not profitable at this point, we're going to lose money? Like, are we going to end up getting canceled if we only have a certain amount of numbers?
We're going to have to sort that out on a case-by-case scenario. When budgets were submitted for each individual camp, they were submitted with an estimate of here's what we think, here's the amount of youth we think we're going to have. So if there are 2 youth who are registered, no, we're not going to run a camp for 2 youth. We're just going to have to wait and see and figure it out for each individual camp. So if we're paying $500 to rent a facility, that's different. But if you're at a park where absolutely everything is free, why not run it? It's just going to be very different each time.
Corey, let me touch on that too, because Sean just had his meeting with the finance folks. So they're going to look at 2 things. They're going to look at kind of how close you are to budget. But the biggest thing that came out of that meeting is that our council finance committee, who inevitably is, you know, who we're responsible to in the way of is an event going to be quote unquote profitable, is more than aware that this year, more importantly, the value of getting people back outside after being cooped up for 18 months is very high. And so there is a for lack of a better way of putting it, acceptable loss factor that they're looking at when they're looking at actual signups versus original budgets.
Okay.
Thank
Jeff
you for
put-
clarifying that, because in previous years we've been told we have to hit a quota or we're not existing next year. And I'm like, okay, I'm really hoping that's kind of not the over case this year, because we're struggling to get people to camp, like just to even talk about it. And I want to be able to go out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. I want to say, hey, we're going above and beyond. I mean, we're doing more than my school is doing, honestly. And
in a normal year, that does make sense. If year after year, we're not getting enough youth at one location and we move it a county over and get 3 times the amount, those are very important things. But this year, I mean, I've always joked, I don't have a magic 8 ball that tells me. This year, I really extra don't have a magic 8 ball. Like there's just no way to project that right now. But in the chat, Jeff Egan just said, it's a value question. As scouts, we highly value the camp experience at every level, so much so that we will go to great extremes to make it happen for kids. This is important and deserves our best effort. So Jeff Egan, if you don't know him, he is a district executive in 3 fires. So if I go to Jeff and say, hey, you don't have enough youth attending your day camp to make it profitable, Jeff's going to go out and contact local businesses and say, hey, will you sponsor it so that we can make sure this happens? This year, more so than in past years, your district executives are more involved in your local day camps. So again, that's a case-by-case situation, but we can figure it out. We definitely don't want to lose money, but we don't want to lose scouts either. And if they haven't done a whole lot or anything in person for a whole year and they don't get day camp, you know, they're not going to stay involved. 2-3 weeks ago at Camp Rotary, we had a Cub event, amazing group of volunteers. Angie, who's in the chat, was a part of them. Sean Hosky ran just a 1-day event at Rotary for Cub Scouts. And we had 0 problems with masks. We had 0 problems with people turning in forms. We had a socially distanced campfire. We had Cub Scouts hit bullseyes at archery for the very first time. And what was most exciting about all of that, there were 43 Cub Scouts who came out, is we had a large number of tigers. That means our littlest Cub Scouts who haven't been in very long are getting they're getting camp experiences. So we want to keep making sure that happens, because those tiger cubs who I was watching at the archery range, they have not been in scouting very long, and what little time they've been in scouting has not looked like the older scouts in their pack, and they were still having the time of their lives because they don't know any different. So thank you, Jeff, for bringing up the point about it being an issue of value.
At this point, they were just happy to be together.
They
were just happy to be together.
Yep, they were having a great time. Yeah, Diana has little ones who are going to camp for the first time. And it's funny because Diana's been a camp person like since the beginning of time. But now she gets to go as a mama, and it's going to be a different experience for her.
But they can't wait. They're like, I don't care, Mama, I'm going.
Any other COVID questions? Okay, well, if you think of something, again, your staff advisors are going to be your first contact, and I'm there to help them. Looks like I need to get together with Keegan because he's my new guy here. I do have a couple of other points I want to throw in while I have everybody here. One, this is where Andrew's ears are going to perk up. So range master training, that's what we need for your folks who are running shooting sports. I'd imagine that if you're going back to the same people who have done it every year, some of them might need to be recertified. Some of them maybe have never been recertified. In past years, we've tried to sprinkle trainings all around the state, and that doesn't always work. Sometimes we finally get somebody who could go and run this training and 2 people show up. So if you do me a favor, and if you know in your area that you do have people who need this training so that you can run your day camp. Throw your city in the chat. I'm going to save the chat later, and we'll try to schedule things closer to you. This training is not something we can do virtual, but we don't have to be at a camp or at a range to host it. So if we find out we have a whole ton of people in the Flint area who need it, then we're going to work hard on scheduling one close so that we don't have as many people driving across the state to get the training. Usually takes about 4 hours. And we have some great folks who can travel around and do those, but we want to make sure that we do it in a way where we get the greatest possible attendance.
There's going to be one at D-Bar-A May 23rd from 9 to what?
10 to 2.
Oh, 10 to 2.
It should be on the calendar soon. I've been waiting for a week.
I was going to say, there's no registration anywhere in the system for that yet.
Yeah, I'm waiting on
Joe.
No.
Joe,
Joe Lewis
Jansen.
and Jansen up at D-Bray. I guess right now that it's down to them creating and putting in Black Pug. That's what I was told. So I'm hoping the next day or two, I'm going to call Joe in the morning and ask him to make sure it gets on as soon as possible, because I've got a bunch of people emailing me too already.
Okay, I'll help you on my end too. I'll bug them a little bit and see if I can help. Because what we'd like to do is schedule a couple more and put out one email blast that says, here's our handful of options. But again, I don't want to have one up in Kalkaska if nobody's going to show up. So thank you for that. And we'll make sure to get some floating around the state for sure. I know that Abel Rubio is updating his very soon.
I'll come visit you in Kalkaska, Corey. I need a reason to go up north.
And then another thing I wanted to mention, because people ask so often, is our day camp trailers. So there will be 4 trailers that are identical for the state, 2 on each side. That's why your staff advisors, as you've been scheduling camps with them, have made sure we don't have more than 2 going on at the same time, because we won't have supplies for them. We don't have a finalized exact listing of everything that's going to be in that, but we'll need your help with some of that. So we're going to have equipment for 2 BB ranges. Normally on a BB range, we shoot 8, so 16. Everything you need from BB guns to BBs, printed targets, stakes, caution tape, all that sort of stuff. Eyewear, safety goggles. So we're going to do 2 BBs, 2 archery, 2 slingshot, obviously eye protection. We're going to have a tub of first aid supplies, and the plan for that is to have smaller first aid kits that are labeled or numbered. That way you can put them at different stations. So if somebody gets hurt way across the field, they don't necessarily have to come all the way across the field to get something really simple like a Band-Aid. And we're also going to have a log book, because you do need to log any first aid that you've done, even if it's just a Band-Aid. But we'll have that in there for your trailer. And then we'll have at least one of those 5-gallon water coolers. If we have enough to put multiple in each trailer, we certainly will. Your check-in supplies, those wristbands, those 3 thermometers, possible signage. We're pricing out options for that. So things like social distancing reminders, that bathroom slide we talked about earlier. So these are things that are for sure going to be on your trailer. Other items, and they wouldn't necessarily go on your trailer, but maybe from your staff advisor or district executive, that we need to know, and that you need to work through your staff advisors so that they know and I can work with them to get the things, would be like fishing equipment. I know of at least one day camp that does that. I don't know if every trailer needs fishing equipment, but we can certainly put fishing equipment on every trailer, but it doesn't make sense if you don't have a water source. Specific tools, if wood crafts are going on, we need to know if we need to supply hammers for every trailer. So those are the types of things we're going to be looking for. We'll want that information again from your staff advisors. And as you are on your committee calls and you're talking about crafts, do think about COVID-friendly crafts. to make sure that that everybody is being safe and sanitized and sanitary in their crafts. So, you know, you don't want to put something together that you're going to be licking. And then working out with your staff advisor the small items that that need to be purchased for your particular camp, but not everybody, right? So the camp that does fishing, they need worms. We don't need to put a bunch of worms on everybody's trailer if everybody doesn't have fishing. So there's a couple ways that that can be done, either purchased through your staff advisor and professional. If it's something really simple and you purchase it and save your receipt, you can be reimbursed. Or is this a situation where we need to talk about petty cash early on? Those are conversations that you need to have with on your committee calls with your staff advisor. Let's see. And then another thing I wanted to throw out is this wouldn't be for anyone necessarily on this call, but next year, Chance family. I said earlier at the beginning of this meeting that we are organizing volunteers to do your camp assessments. Long ago in a galaxy far, far away, they call these visitations or inspections. It's nothing that scary, but it's just a partnership of a volunteer or multiple volunteers and your district executive or staff advisor who come during your camp, and they go through the National Camp School checklist to make sure that everything's being met. So if you know people who you think would enjoy doing that, a lot of times past camp directors say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this again. I've done it for 4 or 5 years. But they have all of that institutional knowledge on how to run a good day camp. Those are the perfect people to come back and do that assessment for your camps. So if you know somebody you think might be interested, this year we're actually asking them all to complete an orientation, which we're doing virtually and already have set up. So take a picture if you have somebody in mind that might be interested in doing this and help us out and spread the word. And then for those of you who are retiring after many years of day camp service, just remember we'll be calling you next year to see if you're willing to go back and help assess another camp and give them, Carrie's texting me. Yes, I did ask Jody Dale. I sent her a message. Haven't heard back yet, but for sure, Jody was a wonderful camp director. So we'd love to keep camp directors involved. We understand that they can't do it forever because it's a lot of work. And as Jeff said earlier, it's valued work. But we will be looking for people to help with that. We have quite a few from past years who are coming back on board. We just want to make sure that everybody does it the same. As we've merged 4 field service councils, we had 4 different teams out there that were operating before. Oh, you can use canned worms versus regular worms. Interesting. Yep.
Corn.
Canned corn.
Canned corn. I'm sorry. It's been a
Canned
really
whole sweet corn. They will bite it up.
For sure. And then somebody also mentioned going out and asking for donations of materials. Yeah, any way to save cost. Because again, we really have no idea what to expect for attendance, right? We hope everybody wants to come to camp and we hope it's safe for everyone to come to camp, but anything we can do to save on cost is very important. And there are a lot of businesses and bait shops willing to get involved with things like this, especially when you remind them that this is the first time some of these little ones are getting outdoors in a very long time. Diana and Andrew, is there anything that you wanted to add or you might have thought of as we went through things that we didn't mention already?
Surprisingly, I was trying to write notes and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make sure Corey covers this. And you covered everything in my little note section. Yeah. And we got some more on top of that. So I think I'm good. I know Andrew has been spending literally every waking day and night on all the COVID stuff. So
11 weeks.
Yeah,
11 weeks.
There you go.
No,
I was gonna say, all of you guys think that that's spending a lot of time. That man right there has spent the most time on the COVID stuff.
Yeah, I'll just say if anyone has COVID related questions or you're not sure on how to do something, like I alluded to earlier, I've been in contact with 17 different councils in the CDC on multiple occasions over the last 11 weeks. And that's kind of what we use to put our COVID plan together. So if you have questions, reach out to your staff advisor or staff advisors. You can reach out to me, or you guys can reach out to me, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. And if it's a question that I don't have an answer to, I'll reach out to my network of folks to try and get an answer for you. That's all I got, Corey.
Thank you, Andrew. Oh yeah, Abel, good point. He said, but what other councils are using Andrew's plan? Quite a lot. I had a friend reach out to me from another council the other day asking, who wrote this stuff? It was really helpful. So kudos to Andrew. Kevin was asking privately, should DEs, district executives, attend this orientation meeting? Absolutely, guys. And we forwarded this information in the past to Gary, but this year, since program is backed by popular demand within the district, we need you guys to be a part as much as possible. And I know that most of you are actually dying to get to camp. But the day camp assessment orientation is for anybody who would be on that assessment team. And those volunteers who are assigned to your camps are going to be reaching out to you to see if you'll walk around with them. And it'll be a learning experience for everyone. And hopefully everybody will come out saying, wow, that was really easy and awesome, because it is. I mean, it's a checklist, things like, do we have camper security, which means are we enforcing wristbands? Simple stuff like that. So I will make sure to get that in your Outlook calendars as well.
Corey, I actually just had somebody ask me a question. With the mask mandate in swimming, how is that working? They don't have, I'm assuming when they're at swimming, they're not wearing a mask or a face shield.
That's correct. So they go to the swimming area wearing the mask. Once they get to the swimming area, they can take off the mask because we don't want any cloth or anything over faces while they're at the waterfront.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, you should have everybody's contact information. I'm gonna save the recording in the chat. So if you have people who ask questions later on, we'll have all those resources for you. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. And I don't know what your weather's like, but it seems to be freezing in Lansing today. So stay warm and safe, and we'll see you soon. Let us know if you need anything.
Thanks, Corey. We're all in